Sid, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Nice to be here, Victor.
I'm excited to have you on, man. I think we're going to have a really fun time here chatting and just getting to pick your brain on all the things that you're up to in life and what you're doing for the world. So before we get into that stuff, can you tell us a little bit about your story and how you got into what you're doing today?
Well, it's a series of weird left turns, and I think sometimes that's the best way to get somewhere when you didn't expect to get there. But that's how it happened with me. So I'll truncate this as much as this is a Cliff Notes version of my hippie journey. Anyways, I started off years ago as an indie rock musician in LA and an actor, but I was a lifelong asthmatic, and just by chance somebody handed me a diet book, goes, "You should read this," and I go, "Yeah, all right." And so I read a diet book, having no interest in anything health wise at all. But made a little change in my diet as a test. My asthma went away for the first time in 22 years, and it's never been back since. So while I continued to play music for years and become a working actor, I just read book after book. When I finally, LA had taken me down, Los Angeles, my wife and I were like, "Let's get the hell out of here." So we moved to this little town and kind of just had this feeling of like, well, now what am I going to do? I need a break from music and everything else. And so I went back to school, became a nutritionist. And I started working with clients, quickly realized that I was failing with almost everyone because the recommendations were good, but they weren't sticking with them. So my bachelor's degree is in philosophy. I was very much in that space still of thinking about things in that way. I backed back out of nutrition and said, I don't like what's going on here. I don't like taking people's money and a month later they're back to their old ways. So I really started to formulate what was going on here. And to me, when I realized it wasn't a food issue so much as it was a stress issue, a habit change issue, I formulated my small steps approach. At that point, I got my first book published, which was about that, called Approaching the Natural. And I came back in as a small stepper, under which I teach people nutrition. And I'm now a certified running coach and a certified breathwork coach, but it's all under the umbrella of stress management and long-term habit change. So they are first equipped with tools to enable long-term habit. Then I can teach them the particulars of diet or whatever else. So that's where I am today. And I love it. People are sticking with, most people, not everybody, but most people are sticking with my recommendations nutritionally because they're able to apply it and make a habit out of it, which is super cool.
I love that. Sometimes when it comes to anything with habits, we got to get, and I want to talk more about small steppers before, and we'll go much more in depth with that. But you got to, we can tell them what to do and stuff, but it's like, how do we give them a system or approach or a process, right, to shift those habits? And then that's like giving them the background of having that success to make that shift.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm working with a 70-year-old right now, like you're talking about people who are, years in the making of their existing routines. And so to expect that you're going to, change your routine of eating, your habit of eating that you've been doing for 50 years, in a 21-day diet is insane. I mean, it really is. And that's why, quick fixes don't work. So we get attracted to them because it's a shiny little ball over the side. And we go, "Oh my God, that's fantastic. I can just do this." And somebody tells me exactly what to do. But at the end of 21 days, you're left with zero tools to continue that on. So this is the hardest work that people can do, but I'm super inspired by the fact that I'm working with people who've been, like I said, 70 years old, and they're making real changes at any age. It's amazing. And so it's been pretty cool to watch that happen.
I love that, brother. So let's dive in then. Let's talk a little bit about, you brought up the small steppers and all that. I love to know. Let's go there first. So what's that? What does it entail? What's it about? How does, and all that good stuff?
Well, as you know, because you're the same as I do, neither you nor I have the hair to be hippie, but this is the hippiest I'm going to get. I swear.
Come on, man. I got my wife would say I'm a hippie to some degree.
I did a movie once, and I was in a movie once, and I had to get a physical for the movie. And the doctor said to me, this woman, she said, I love this term. She goes, God gave only a few people really well-shaped heads, and on all the rest, he put hair. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly right. Anyways.
I like that.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. Yeah. This is how hippie I'm to get. I use this mantra. That's the word. Okay. So my mantra is mind first, body second. Mind first, body second. Now, what this means is when somebody comes to me because they want to improve their diet and they want to lose weight and they want to take care of their type 2 diabetes or whatever brings them in my door, or running or whatever, I go, good goal. We'll get to that in a minute. We're not there yet because we got to get these ducks in a row. The mind. We're going to work on the mind first, then second, meaning I want people to get their heads around what are their real goals. Because if you ask somebody for another minute past their initial goal, which is, I want to lose weight. If you go, do you want to gain it back or do you want to keep it off? Well, I want to keep it off. Okay, well, then you'll never do a diet because that will never succeed in you keeping it off. So let's get very clear on what your goals actually are. Take them through an exercise where they write down their ideals, what their perfect life would look like as if they were living it now. And then that's a direction that they move to. We work through the ideas of maybe you'll never reach your ideals. It doesn't matter, but you set them first and you know where you're going. If your ideal is, I'm at a healthy weight and I'm a healthy person and I have a healthy relationship with food, I don't binge and I don't beat myself up if I eat something a little bit not so healthy, then you'll never do a diet. It keeps you on track, and then you realize what you're really going for. So it's mind first, body second. When I feel with a client or in my online program that I'm very involved with, because I do live Q&As and things, if I feel that somebody is understanding that at their core, they get it now. Okay, I got this. I'm clear on who I am and how I want to operate. At that point, then I will transition to the body side of it, which is the particulars of running coaching or the particulars of breath work or the particulars of diet. But I don't want to. I have people who come in and go, I want to lose weight, and they get pissed at me. First 4 weeks, but when we're going to talk about nutrition, I go, you're not there yet, because you're so focused on food, you're so obsessed with food, you're so obsessed with calorie counting, all stuff that's not necessary at all. Until you can let that stuff go and realize who you actually are, then we will talk about food. If I give it to you first, you're going to do what you've done. By the way, every client comes to me after yo-yo dieting for 20 years, right? So I go, you've seen this movie. You've seen the movie of going all in on food. You've seen this movie about how you fail and you gain the weight back. Let's do it differently this time. So it's a fun give and take, but man, it's a battle at times, a real battle.
I can relate as a chiropractor. I'm not the norm of a chiropractor, but a lot of times people like I literally, if someone calls, like my team would know, like if someone says, hey, I got this pain, I just want to get out of this pain. My team would be like, listen, the doc, he'll be more than happy to see you, but understand that if you're coming here, just to know that you got the right chiropractor. This is a lifestyle office. This is not a treatment model based, whatever that it doesn't really exist. And then they'll be like, well, I just want to be out of pain, and he's the one that's highly recommended. And they'll be like, okay, just understand that it's not going. There's going to be a length of care, and he's going to talk to you about this when that time comes. Because we want to be transparent with the client too, the patient, to let them know, hey, because there are some people who are like, I really don't care, just get me out of pain. I'm like, you don't want to know why it's been there and the history behind it.
What's underneath?
All that stuff that's going on that led to this, and there, some people just don't care. But I could totally relate. I totally understand that journey and that process. But I love that. I love what you're doing on that, because you have to. We're so conditioned in so many ways, and I wouldn't even say mind first, body second is even that hippie-ish for my world.
It's just the word mantra. It was just that I used the word mantra.
Oh, gotcha. The mantra. Sorry.
Just the word. It was just I used the word mantra. I also use the word journey. That's very also. I don't have the hair to support that word either.
The journey. I love it. Yes, I know. I don't know what I mean. Hey, I would have loved to have when I was 19 years old. Side story. I used to have like 7.5 inches of long curly hair. Could have pulled that off then, but. That's when God said, okay, you did it once. You had your experience. We're going to get rid of it now.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
So anyway, I digress. So when we're looking at the small steppers, and it's one of these things where it's really just looking at the habit side of things and really working on that before implementing anything else like breath work and other stuff that you do.
Correct. Get your ducks in. I in the exercise, I've worked with morbidly obese people, and in the and this is, by the way, they write everything because they have everything in writing forever. In that exercise, I've had morbidly obese people write in that first exercise, I'm at a healthy weight. And that's a very weird thing for them to see, because in their ideal, they're at a healthy weight. So what I always say is I'm not helping people become new people. I'm helping them become who they already are, but haven't been behaving in line with that person for years. So if I ask somebody what their ideal is and they say, if I were living my perfect life, I'd be at a healthy weight. I go, well, who is the entity that values that? Who is the entity that sees that as an ideal? So we can beat ourselves up for binging, or we can realize it's not who we are. We actually are people who have a healthy relationship with food, ideally. So let's start moving in that direction. Let's start getting that person out more every day. That's never done in diets. There's never a discussion of stress management in diets. It's simply, here's the shopping list. Here's day one. Here's the recipes. go, I will tell you exactly what to do. And I see the draw of that, man. It's like, tell me what to do so I don't have to think about it. The problem is without thinking about it, you're not actually going to solve the issue. Just like what you do with your clients. It's like, unless you think about it, you're going to come, we'll get to the pain away, but you're going to be back in our door in a month because you're going to have the exact same thing happen again. That's a yo-yo dieting thing. And I'm a father of 3 and I'm a husband. I'm very busy. I get the draw of diets. It's easy. It's easy. Just tell me what to do. Good Lord, I don't want to think about it. I got too much stuff on my plate. But at some point, and this is why, by the way, I don't work with 20-year-olds, because I'm like, you got like 10 more yo-yo diets to do. We'll talk about, go burn yourself, come crawling in my door when you're like, I can't do this anymore. Then I'm like, okay, now we can get the real work done. You're still distracted by the shiny. When you're done with that, let's get the real work done. So I'm always like in the 30 to 70 range of people who are like, Sid, I am so done. I go, good. Now the real work begins. But until you can see that, you can't see it.
I love that. I think it's a good market. You got to get that, when you're young, you just like, okay, I can try this, I can do this. And you just keep burning up all that energy.
Yep.
And it's like in spiritual, sometimes I'll tell people, like, if they're too mental heavy, this is what I do sometimes with my coaching clients, and they just don't know how to tap into feeling. I'll say, I want you to go to physical exhaustion. And then once you hit physical exhaustion, then I want you to go do this inner work and start processing. And then they're like, I can't think. What do you mean? I'm not going to be up. I'm like, that's why I want you to do this. I go, this is old techniques. They used to exhaust the hell out of somebody. And then once they're fully they're totally exhausted, then the actual work and the process can begin.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. The new book I'm working on right now. I'm hoping to have it. The publisher thinks it can be out next year, but it's on ultra running. I'm an ultra runner. And it's trying to sell ultra running to people who are completely not good athletes like myself, because there is that physical wearing down and that mental wearing down that we don't actually experience in the modern world, because we're so much in a comfort zone. And to take yourself into these kinds of places is actually, there's a lot of cool stuff happens in that way. So anyway, side note. But
no, real quick. So can you just share with the listeners what is ultra? You say ultra runner?
Yeah, ultra running. Oh, so yeah,
ultra
right.
running. Sorry, there we go.
That's okay. It doesn't matter. Either ultra marathon, whatever. Ultra, it's trails. It's anything over 26.2 miles. So I actually direct a race. I just had my 5th year on April 23rd. Sold out race every year. Super cool. This very little kind of cool little, brings in people from 17 states into my little town here.
Congrats.
Yeah, very cool. But it's a 50K. So my actual race is about 34 miles. 50K is technically 31.4, but it never quite works out that way. Anyway, 34 miles on trails, 5,000 feet of climb. And I'm telling you, every year I've had at least 10 over 60s and a handful over 70s. And a woman who's 72 years old comes traipsing right across. And she was not in last place, by the way. She was definitely in the race, probably mid-pack, 72 years old, comes running across the finish line. Great race, goes walking on, 72 years old. So it's pretty incredible what the human body and mind can do.
As they say in the South, bless her heart, just bless her heart.
Exactly.
I'll tell you, when I hear ultra running, ultra marathons, I'm like, I'm just built in a different way. You'd think
it's pretty surprising.
And that's the thing, because your body will adapt, right? No matter what, you can shift
your mind.
Yeah.
And a buddy of mine ran it. First ultra run she's ever done. She's 51, mother of 2, decent runner, but not any kind of, I don't even think she's run a marathon. And she came through the ultra run, first time she'd ever run an ultra marathon, period. Top of her age group, 5th overall woman overall, and 29th in the entire race. And it was her first ultra. She came across, I was like, what are you doing here? She came across the finish line and she killed across the finish line. It wasn't even like she crawled. She came through and goes, oh my God, that was amazing. And she was so scared the week before. She didn't know she could finish. All these guys go, you'll be fine. I just knew, because she was kind of killing it. So it's a lot of overcoming fear. It's pretty cool.
I love it. No, it is. Like anything, right? It's all mental. It's one of those things like, being an athlete and challenging, putting my body through the most rigorous things that I could possibly put it through. It really just, it comes down to that mental component and just being able to be like, I think, what was it? David Goggins says, he talked a lot about it in his book, where it's like, when you think you're at exhaustion, there's
40%. 40%.
Exactly, right? and I could tell you, even from what I understand about the body and what I trained and learned, there's protection mechanisms built in your muscles that whatever you think your max strength is, that is around 33 to 35% of actually what your max strength is, because of the protection mechanisms built into the body to protect the tendons and the muscles from overstretching.
Yeah.
And so then I'm like, So when I heard David Guys 40%, I'm like, yeah, it's about right, based on that principle. But it's still one of those things. Whenever you're tired, I love the pull-up thing. Whenever you're tired, yeah, just stand down for a second, go back up. You'll be able to pull at least another one or two, and you'll still can be able to do that. But I digress.
Yeah, no, it's crazy stuff.
So between ultra running and the small steppers and all that, you also have a book, 6 Truths. Love to get into this because it's all about to live by these truths and to be happy. And what does it say? And don't and you won't. Sorry, I don't have my glasses on.
Yeah. Don't and you won't. Yeah. It came out last year. It's basically my first book is Approach the Natural, a Health Manifesto. I would say this one is more of a happiness manifesto. As I progressed in my career over the last 12 years, what I realize is when somebody comes to me wanting to be healthier, I see it as what they really want is to be happier. And within that is health. Of course, I think that taking care of our bodies goes the biggest way toward being happy. I think it's the most overlooked. We want to be happy without the work of making our bodies and minds healthy. And so it's a manifesto of sorts of happiness. It's 6 truths that I think I tried to kind of distill and encapsulate a direction for people to make themselves happy. And a lot of it is accepting that, getting away from this hack mentality and actually buckling down to do the hard work of what it takes to make yourself healthy and happy. In 2018, as a test, I quit all social media, deleted all the accounts, literally deleted, not even just stop, but deleted, and figured, I can always come back. Never did. And so I've been social media free since 2018, with the exception of YouTube. Some people think that's social media. My YouTube channel, for the last couple of years, I put a YouTube video up and I disable comments. I never allow comments. So that, and I have my podcast. So those are my 2 sort of main ways of getting out there. But it was interesting. Within a year of quitting social media, a year and a half, I had written an entire album's worth of music for the first time in like 14 years. Hadn't recorded or put out an album in 14 years, and yet here I'm writing a whole new record, which I've now begun recording down in Los Angeles last month. So it was part of the truth is social media ain't social. And I'm not trying to convince people to quit social media, but I do want them to recognize that it is not a healthy action when done too much. People are on it too much. It was definitely taking me down. It was affecting my quality of life in a negative way. I took it to the extreme and quit just to see what it would be like. My hand, Victor, when I deleted Facebook, was trembling. Literally, when I went to push the button, it was shaking. And I was like, kind of like giving up drugs. And so it was a kind of an interesting, it was a completely interesting experiment. And I thought, well, I'm just going to keep going until whatever. And it's never come back.
So how, some people listening to this, because I've wanted to get away from social media from time to time, especially Facebook. But it was one of those things where I love what you brought up, though. Like, you're like, look at this. I wrote an album that I haven't wanted to do. I haven't done in 14 years, things like that. You brought up something. I was trembling. Were you trembling? What was the trembling when you were getting ready to delete? Why was that happening?
I think because social media is addictive. Well, I don't think it is. It is addictive. The model's addictive. Then when I had started, part of the inspiration for me quitting it was research. I listened to some podcasts and read some articles about the algorithms, the intention in creating these social media companies of crafting their model in a way that would create addiction, trickling out likes, not telling you how many people have liked your photo right away, letting you know that some people have, and then you go back and there's no change, and then you go back and there's no change, and now there's more likes. Those are all based on psychological experiments with pigeons. They hit a button, they get a treat, hit a button, get a treat. Somebody realized, what if you don't give them a treat every time? You intermittently drip out those treats, they would hit the button more. And that was Facebook was built on that model. If we don't and Instagram, if you don't let them know all once, they're going to keep kicking it. We got to get them back on that screen. In my podcast, we can get pissed about that, or we can understand the fact that we demand things for free. And these companies want to make money. That's a very dangerous relationship. I want free stuff. You got to make money. So what are you going to do? You're going to make it such that I get on your little platform as much as possible. And you're going to manipulate headlines to make them seem more negative. You're going to do all the clickbaity thing so that I am on there more often. And that's a model I think we've invited on ourselves by demanding everything for free. We don't want to pay for anything, but then we get mad about the fact that YouTube is steering us toward, crazy children videos, which they correct. I got off YouTube for about a year. I was like, I don't even like, this is crazy what you're doing. I went over to Vimeo and then they fixed their stuff and I went back on YouTube. But it's not great because they're trying to make money at the expense of keeping things free. And I think that's not a good model if you don't have some good ethical foundation there. And I don't think Zuckerberg has an ethical foundation.
I can agree with you there. One thing I bring this up too, because it's like, even from a business perspective, if you were like telling somebody, so you're telling your story, here's business, someone in business would be like, what are you doing? Social media is where you want to be. That's where Facebook is that's the goal. Oh, yeah. You got how many people there? Do you mind? I'm just curious, because I do have entrepreneurs who listen to the podcast. And did you see growth in everything even from that perspective, from cutting out?
I saw personal growth. But I'll be very honest, and I talked about in the book. My podcast, my career my followers took a hit. So there's no doubt about that. Absolutely no doubt about it. However, I never found it that significant, first of all. Second of all, I think a lot of it is crap. I think a lot of people buy followers and they have the numbers, and publishers go, how many followers on Facebook? Well, if they're 10,000, 50,000, but you bought 40,000, it's fake. But anyways, neither here nor there. What I found was a absolute, like I said, with the writing of my music, with my time with my family, my quality of life came up. I think the quality of my work increased after getting off social media. So my first podcast I had for 222 episodes was called the Approaching the Natural Podcast. It was based on my approach in my first book and all this kind of stuff. I had thousands, over 10,000, listeners, which isn't huge, but it's significant.
That is huge. Yeah.
When I shut that down after 222 episodes, I didn't know if I'd ever come back to podcasting, but then I started having ideas. So about 6 months later, I launched my current show, What Sid Thinks. I just did my 150th episode. I'm not even at 1,000. So, it's like, but I will say the quality of the work has gone up. The quality of my listenership has gone up, not the quantity, but the quality. When people follow me, it's because they're in it for real. They're not just, they're in it. I have, good followers that are into ideas, that are listening to these kinds of things, that email me. It's not like you can't get in touch with me. I'm just not tweeting 280 characters. So they can send me emails, and I'm very accessible, but not in all these platforms. And to me, and even with friends, it was weird. I was in touch with people on Facebook. When I quit Facebook, a fraction of those I'm still in touch with, but they're like they're not the girlfriend from high school, the guy that I barely knew, but it was like quality over quantity. And I really came to appreciate that, on a profound level.
No, I appreciate you sharing. I wanted to ask too, because I wanted to ask that because you're bringing up a point that I talk a lot about, where you're like, my personal life got better and everything improved there. But then you brought up another point, but the quality of what I do and everything that I do just leveled up to a whole nother level. And I think that's critical, because when you a lot of things I teach is like, in my coaching business that I do, and when I work with clients, I'm a business coach. So when you hear business coach, a lot of people think, oh, you're going to help me with my bottom line. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, yeah, but that's not the primary. Well, hold on, but you talk about it. Yes, I talk about it, but I have a unique way of going about it. And the real thing is I actually work on their life. Their relationships, their health, their mindset, their mission and passion and vision and purpose of what they want. And I said, if we can get all that in alignment and get that solid, the business just comes, because it's the product of the person.
That's right.
And so it's one of those things where you're seeing that effect. You see more probably from doing those kind of things. Maybe not, it wasn't initially, but down the road from just my own research of seeing things, you saw that. And I commend you to do that, because it's something that there's certain, like, I'm like itching right now. Like, I'm like, maybe I should just focus on 2 platforms and get rid of everything else. Mm-hmm. And then just be like, that's it. Who cares? And just get away. And I can always go back if I need to, but
that's how I was. I'd gotten rid of Twitter about 6 months before, but in 1 month I deleted Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Strava. And I'm not even anti-Strava. I love Strava, but it was just this thing of like, what if I have nothing? What if I have literally nothing to log into, except for I have my videos that I put out and my podcast that I put out? That's what I want. Those are my blog, but I don't blog that much, but mostly it's podcasts. I just want to streamline. And I'm telling you, man, the mental space that opens up. Oh my God. It's like a whole, first of all, you have downtime. So you got to get used to not doing stuff, not pushing stuff in your head all the time. And it just opens up this kind of thinking platform. When I trained for my first ultramarathon, just as a challenge, I thought, what if because I'm going out for 3-4 hour runs all of a sudden, right? And I go, what if I don't listen to podcasts or music? What if I just go out by myself? And it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Harder than the running. It was harder than the running. Not having music or anything in my head, no headphones, just running in silence. But you get used to it, and all of a sudden ideas start to come in. It's a whole nother. It's like we've lost. I've done some research and read great books on solitude, on being quiet, even if you're around loud stuff, but not intentionally putting stuff into your head. Just having moments like driving in the car. Don't turn anything on for 5 minutes. Just don't have any music. Nothing. A lot of people can't do that. We are very much with our phones in our hands. We never have a moment to think or process anything. And I think it's taken us down.
It has. I mean, and you brought up a great point too. Like sometimes people, I always tell people like, go out and just sit in your backyard and let nature be your music.
Yeah. Just try nothing for even minute. I'm a small stepper. So all people go, I can't just 1 minute, go stand outside for 1 minute and do nothing for 1 minute, It's a very hard. People are surprised at how hard it is, and it's getting harder, by the way, because any moment of thinking, we distract with whatever we can.
Well, you brought up a great point with Facebook, because I know their algorithm in many ways of what it's designed, and it is designed to be a dopamine kick, and they look for those ways. So what's that doing to our minds and be able to handle? Because once you keep firing dopamine for responses, it's like a drug. You need to fire more now to get that same effect.
By the way, junk food is exactly the same way. I mean, exactly. I see it through literally drugs, alcohol, social media, junk food. To me, it's all the same. It's all the same kind of thing. Best minimized, all of them.
Totally. And then but then the other thing too, you're bringing up is like the attention spans, right? Because now our attention spans as humans is less than a goldfish. And that's not really that good for our species in the near future. But anyway, I digress on all that.
Well, can I tell you a quick story about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I was writing my second book, which is called Raising Healthy Parents, Small Steps, Less Stress, and a Thriving Family. It's about parents. The message is, parents need to take some time back and develop their own health and happiness in order to parent better. Not put themselves on the back burner because they have to take care of the kids. They have to take care of the kids, but they got to take care of themselves first. That's the message of the book. Neither here nor there. I'm writing the book. And I'd already had a book published. So I go, second book, done this before, been there. And I start writing. And I cannot focus for more than 5 minutes. I mean, it was unbelievable. I would write for about 5 minutes, go, oh, killing it. And all of a sudden I'd be on YouTube. I'd be on Facebook. This is before I quit social media, right? So all of a sudden, 5 minutes, I can't. And I told my wife at the time, I was like, I am worried. I cannot focus. Something is going on with my brain. And on one of my little distraction trips over to YouTube, I saw recommended, I feel like it was the universe, again, hippie, universe was talking to me, a TED talk by a guy named Cal Newport. You ever heard of this guy? Cal Newport.
Sounds familiar.
Okay. So it says why I have no social media or something like that. I watched this 13-minute TED talk. He's written a book called Deep Work. And it is literally about what you just said. It is, if I ever meet the guy, he saved me because I immediately started putting in constraints. I put a free plugin on my browser that during certain hours, if I went over to it, it'd say, shouldn't you be working? And it would block me from websites. And I realized, and so I was able to catch it in time and put constraints on so that I didn't have email accessible for certain times, didn't have websites accessible for certain times, because I realized, and he talks about in that book, that there is neurological changes, physiological wirings of the brain that we are, especially kids, losing the ability to stick with something long-term. We are so partitioned it's like popcorn brain. We go from one thing to another, and we are losing the ability to get into deep, sustained work. And so, it's another thing I really coach people on.
It's true. It's scary because my work as a chiro, I'm very heavily into the neuro side because I worked with a lot of, I was a pediatric chiro and stuff too. So neurology is the thing that I focused heavily. And it's one of those things where what we're seeing and how everything coming, even from a neural development standpoint because of this, we can make it. Could still, there still can change. The brain changes, but there's just some things that we're just making the road harder now. And harder and harder.
Yeah, we can catch it, but we got to catch it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know if you shared, but I would love to get really quick here. You talk in your book, 6 Truths. What are the 6 truths?
You're gonna
if you don't mind sharing.
You're gonna make me have them by memory. Well, look at this. Luckily got the book right here. I use this as a coaster. Literally use this as a coaster when I do in my pocket. I put the coffee right on it. Okay, so good Lord, man. Okay, so we got.
I'm sorry. We could go to a different question. You should have knew that was coming.
I know. I'm gonna. I'll summarize most of them. Here we go. Social media ain't social. Happiness is in the A to Y, not the Z. So again, in the A to Y. You hit your goal, start another goal, and start working toward it. Okay. There's no substitute for hard work, and there never will be. Live the example. Okay, so being the example is I think it's like the whole shebang or whatever. That's the whole. So that's 5 of them, and the one, other one I can't remember, but it'll come to me. But anyway, so it's basically like live the example. You got to work your ass off. Social media is not social, so to get back into the sort of the more natural way of doing things, and it's in the movement every day. It's in the action of day. It's not in the goal. The goal's great, but I sort of go with my clients, like, make the goal in a way obsolete. You either hit it or you don't, but you have it. That's the most, if you have a goal, then you've got somewhere to move to. And the movement is what makes us happy every day. A lot of my clients, by the way, come to me because they don't have motivation. They don't have passion. They're stagnant. And it's getting them moving. And that's why I'm a small stepper, because this gargantuan things looming keep them on the couch. It's too big. I can't deal with it. So if I can get them to think about what can I do today, everything changes. The weight off their shoulders comes off. Oddly enough, they'll even start eating better before I even coach them on food, because they're less stressed. They're feeling more fulfilled. So this book was a dedication to people to get them moving towards something, to really formulate their lives in a way that gets them off the figurative or literal couch into doing things day to day. Even if it's the smallest of things, it is still in that action that we find happiness, and I think health as a result of that.
No, I love it. And that's why I love your whole thing with the small steppers. Anytime anyone talks about doing things small first is always great, because you brought up something like, if it's a big thing, then no, you're not going to do it. And the brain is literally designed that if it cannot connect the dots, if it's too, like I tell people, if you want to make, like, sometimes I work with a client, I want to make $1 million. Okay, great. Where are you at right now? I'm at 50,000. Okay. That's a big gap. How about we focus here? And it's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you may be motivated and you may be inspired and you're building all this motivation and all this stuff, but I'm like, that's just, the gap is too big. Your brain's it's shutting it down because you never experienced it. It doesn't know. It doesn't even understand the lengths of where you have to go. How about just, how can you get to 51?
That's literally, because that'll get you in the direction. It's fine. Right. Have that million out there. But if you keep thinking about, like, when I write a new book, when I write my new book, I had to do my same small steps approach, which is, the book's this huge. Oh my, starting a new book. So my first step was, for me, open the file once a day. Don't even write anything. Just open the file once a day. I just had to get it on my radar. Then that became 5 minutes a day, and that became 10. Now I'm writing every day. But I got to play the same game, because if I think about getting this whole book done, I will distract myself at first opportunity, because I don't want to deal with it too much. So we have to play that game with ourselves. It's just human nature and what it is. And we can get pissed about it, or we can accept it and get moving and do things that make us happy and healthy.
No, and you bring up a great point with that too, because it's like, I just finished my 3rd book, and it's like, some people always ask, like, do you do the outline? Do you do this? Or how do you do it? And I'm like, it's kind of your way, just mine's a little different, where I'm just like, chapter 1, I'll feel the theme. I'll feel what the title of it is. All right, here we go. I'm going to write until this is done, whenever that happens, and then it's like, what's your next chapter? Now somebody will ask me, like, okay, you did chapter, what's the names of all the chapters? I have no clue. Yeah. What do you mean you don't have no clue? I'm in the moment. I'm just going to do it a little at a time. It'll come to me. Once the title's there, then I can write. But until it comes to me, I just continue to press along, just a little bit here, a little bit there. I throw some ideas out there. May not even use half of it, but it's just, going in, just make sure I'm doing it still, because that's that whole movement, right? You got to make sure you're having that energy moving forward.
If you're doing it, stuff's coming in. If you just go, I'll wait for inspiration, you got to start the movement. And, and that's why I kind of work the same way you do. It's just, what gets me working is just that small step of, like, I'm just going to open the file today, and then I'm in it, and then stuff would start to come in, but you got to just say, like, today I'm just going to open the file. Some days I would just open and shut it back down. Other days it would be open and I'd get rolling on something and have a really good idea, but it's all about the movement. It's all about the action.
You do. And like what you're sharing here for the listeners, it's always, you got to find what works for you too, right? Because Instead of, if you go listen to somebody and they say, well, this is how you write a book, or this is how you do this, you may be, if you get really stressed out with it, maybe there's something, that it's not aligning with you or what you are. Cause I know I wanted to write a book since I was 26 years old. My first book was written, what was that? I'm trying to think how I was 34. So it took me almost 8 years just to get my first book written. And it really was just letting go of all the ideologies of how to write a book and just go, here's what I'm going to do. This is my first book. I don't expect it to be perfect. I'm not trying to get #1 bestseller or this and that. It's nice to have that, but I'm like, I just care about getting the books out there.
That's right.
Because that's what really matters at the end of the day.
So what you just described is how exactly the same kind of thinking I apply to diets. You can have the information about how to eat the healthiest diet. Most people have a pretty good idea about how to eat well. If they're not eating well, it's not because they don't know enough. It's because they're not. So you got to let go of this idea of perfection. I do this with clients. The idea of perfection, what even that is. But you wrote a book. And at the end of the day, you can know everything about how to write the book or even find your way of doing it. But if you're not doing it, you're like the thousands of screenwriters in LA sitting in coffee houses who've never written a screenplay. They'll tell you they're a screenwriter, but they've never produced anything. That's because they lack the tools to actually move toward that, because they're wrapped up in ideas of perfection. And if they can't write the perfect sentence right out of the chute, they don't write one at all. And it's a deeper issue. It's a mental issue first. And then once you let go of ideas of perfection, just get something out, not worry that it's perfect right out of the chute, you can actually produce work and be happier because of it.
It's like, I was going to say, the happiness comes when you're less stressed because of it, and you just do.
Right. That's right.
Love that, brother. Sid, I could talk to you all day, but how can people connect with you, follow you on social media, get your book and so forth?
Yeah. Well, no social media. They can go to So 3 main ways. SidGarza-Hillman.com is sort of the main portal where you can, everything. You can connect me and see all the information about me. My books are in stores and on Amazon, and everywhere because they're published, and that's how that goes. And then podcast is What Sid Thinks, my YouTube channel, Sid Garza-Hillman. And otherwise, smallsteppers.com or smallstepintensive.com. The difference is smallsteppers.com is a free 6-part video that then after that you can sign up for the online program if it seems like a good thing for you. It's 12 weeks. Smallstepintensive.com is my private coaching model, and you can set up a free call with me, and if it's a good fit, we roll. If it's not, no worries. So yeah, those are the three main ways.
Awesome, brother. For all the listeners, I will have that in the show notes for y'all. But Sid, this was awesome. I could talk to you all day, man.
I know we have a lot of crossover there. Yeah, cool.
But I appreciate you. I appreciate the work you're doing, everything that you're doing, and what you're up to. And keep rocking and rolling and keep moving forward with what you're doing. I love it.
You too. Total pleasure hanging out with you, and thanks for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure, brother.